everybody. Today is Monday for reading. And for reading today, we are going to be reading chapter 8 of Hatchet. I'm going to put a link so that you can listen to chapter 8 if you'd like to listen to it. But we're going to be reading different parts of chapter 8, and our goal is to make inferences. So before we get going, I want you really quickly we're going to do a thought jot. So if you have a piece of paper or notebook, whenever I show you the next picture, I would like for you to write down everything you notice and everything you think about this picture. So I'm going to give you a few seconds. You can either pause the video or you can um, just wait. Write down everything that you notice about this picture. Hmm. So, some things that I noticed, I see that it looks like there's a cake and some balloons in the background. I see looks like a present, and it's a baby. And so, based on all the clues in the picture, I can tell that this looks like it's maybe the baby's first birthday. It's a baby girl because there's pink balloons, and maybe it's their first birthday party, and they're eating the cake and they're really enjoying the cake. So, what details stuck up in the picture to me? Well, the pink balloons, the cake all over the face. It's a baby, and the birthday present over here. Those are the things that stuck out to me. What schema do you have? Well, I know that I have been to a lot of first birthday parties, and at first birthday parties, there's one cake that they have, and they let the baby eat the cake and put it all over their face and take pictures of it. That's what happens at first birthday parties. And so I know I can infer that this is the baby's first birthday, and they are celebrating that with their family and letting the baby eat cake. So, today we're going to be making inferences just like I did with that picture. And maybe you made similar inferences that I did. So, our goal is that we can refer to details in a text when drawing inferences. What does it mean to make an inference? Whenever we're making an inference, we are making a guess based on the clues in the text and based on what we know. So, whenever we make an inference, we need to have text clues, schema, so things that we know or things that we know about our life, and then we can put those things together and say, I can infer, I can do this, and we make guesses about the text. Um, so today we're going to be doing this. I have an example that we read in chapter 7. Remember the big bear that came, and Brian was afraid of the bear. So I'm going to read this part of the text, and as I read, I'm going to be underlining text clues to show me how does the bear feel about Brian. So I'm going to go up here, and you can click the scribble line to underline and add that. So he had seen one in the zoo in the city once, a black bear, but it had been from India or somewhere. This one was wild and much bigger than the one in the zoo, and it was right there, right there. The sun caught the ends of the hairs along his back, shining black and silky. The bear stood on its hind legs, half up, and studied Brian. So I'm going to go ahead and underline that. He studied Brian and just studied him, and then lowered itself and moved slowly to the left, eating berries as it rolled along, waffling and delicately using its mouth to lift each berry from the stem. And then in seconds, it was gone. So I noticed that, I'm going to use the line. I noticed that the bear was just eating berries and rolling along. And so he noticed that he moved slowly. So, in this part of the text, it was gone. I noticed that the bear didn't try to attack Brian. He was just wanting to eat berries. So, um, some text clues that I saw, the bear just stood up and looked at Brian. He studied him, and he kept eating berries, and then he left. So, some things I know about bears that I read in that attack book. I know that bears will attack people if they feel startled or extremely hungry or feel threatened. So I can infer that the bear didn't see Brian as a threat. He just wanted to eat berries. It didn't tell me that in the text. I had to infer based on the clues that it kept moving along that the bear wasn't threatened by Brian. Let's look at another example together. So we're going to read chapter 8 today. And here's a link to the PDF file. I'm also going to link the read aloud here for you to listen to. But you're going to make inferences while you read today. So in this section, this is the very beginning of chapter 8. Remember, we left Brian and it just had rained and he was eating raspberries. And he was sleeping. And he was sleeping with his hatchet next to him because he was afraid of the bear. So, whenever we read, we're going to be thinking about, what do you think the smell of rot is? We're going to be underlining clues that give us an idea of what the smell of rot is. So, at first, he thought it was a growl in the still darkness of the shelter in the middle of the night. His eyes came open and he was awake, and he thought there was a growl, but it was the wind. A medium wind in the pines that made some sound that brought him awake. He sat up and was hit with a smell. He thought he heard a growl. So I'm going to go ahead and underline that. And he was hit with the smell. So, what do we think the smell of rot is? It terrified him. The smell was one of rot. Some musty rot that made him think only of graves with cobwebs of dust and old death. So I'm going to go ahead and underline that. So the smell of rot that made him think of cobwebs and dust and death. His nostrils widened and he opened his eyes wider, but he could see nothing. It was too dark, too hard to see with the clouds covering even the small light from the stars. And he could not see, but the smell was alive. Alive and full and in the shelter. The smell was alive. Alive and full and in the shelter. He thought of the bear. He thought Bigfoot and every monster he'd ever seen in every fright movie he'd ever watched, and his heart hammered in his throat. So, in the text, it says there was a smell of rot in the shelter, and Brian thinks the smell is alive. So, some schema that I have, I know that sometimes when animals die, they smell. And sometimes, if you've been to the zoo, many animals have a smell, especially smell bad. Maybe not of rot, but it kind of smells gross. So I don't know what the smell is, but I think that there is a live animal in Brian's shelter. That is the schema that I am putting together there. That stinks. So we'll have to keep reading to see what else happens. Today, you're going to keep reading and writing down your schema. So that was the first one that we did together. Now, you all are going to read page 86 and 87. I've took a snip of those pages here. If it's hard to read them, you can always click here and go to PDF page 86 and 87. So whenever you click, you'll go to a new link, and you can type in at the top. So if you're going to 86, you'll go there and it'll take you directly to that page, and you can zoom in here to get it as big as you would like. Or you can always zoom in too using that view button. So you're going to be answering this question: what animal do you think attacked Brian? And then what text clues did you have to show me that that was the animal? What schema do you have about this animal? And what is your inference? What's the answer to that question? And you could do the same thing. How do we know that Brian feels like he should give up? What text clues told you that Brian should give up? That he thinks he should give up? What schema do you have about that? What do you know about that? And then we already made the inference. Um, Then your exit ticket today, you're going to finish reading the chapter, pages 89 through 92. And while you're reading, you're going to be listening for clues. How do we know that Terry and Brian's father are helpful to him? So you'll put the text clues and then what you know about your schema down. And then at the very end, for chapter 8, you are going to write a summary. You can choose the 5 W's, or you can choose a somebody wanted but so then. Remember, you're just writing this summary for chapter 8. So we probably won't include things like a plane crash or that he wanted to visit his father in Canada because that didn't happen in this chapter. What happened in this chapter to get that summary? If you have questions or need help, please message me or get on at 3 o'clock today and I will help you.